Okay, back over here in the words of the Arizal, who explained really the words of the Arizal should really find a lot of favor in our eyes, because they bring about an explanation that is really palatable in the concept of free will, which Yediyah, Hashem has foreknowledge, and yet we have free will. So the Arizal's main thrust and his concept is that there really is no contradiction between the two things, because there's the existence of Hashem outside of this world, which is nothing to do really with the physical world that we are a part of, and then there is the physical world, which in a certain way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has chosen, exactly how mystically, Kabbalistically this works, but Hashem has chosen to kind of constrict himself in order to allow us the opportunity that we should have free will and the ability to choose in our lives. So up there, beyond the physical world, which was where HaKadosh Baruch Hu was before there was a physical world, in that world Hashem knows everything. And that's expected because Hashem is omniscient. He's almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing. And therefore, to say that there's something that Hashem doesn't know is limiting the power of Hashem. But in this world, the fact that Hashem wants a world of free will, He had to create a world in which it will be possible for us to have free will that will not conflict with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's foreknowledge. So that means that in this world, so to speak, Hashem's foreknowledge is beyond it. So we're really only dealing in a world where there is free will. And therefore, each and every one of us is confronted by choices and challenges and difficulties and situations that arise, and we have to then come to our senses and make a decision. Am I going this way or that way? Am I going right or left? Am I going forward or backwards? Am I making a choice that's grounded in the truth, or am I making a choice that's grounded in deceit? What am I going to do? So that's, in my world, what I am struggling with and trying to make a decision. That's the world that Hashem has created for me. He knows everything already. That's in Hashem's world. That's not in my world down here. And therefore, says the Arizal, it's not a contradiction of forces, it's the reality that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created so that He will, of course, always know everything, but we down here will have the ability to make our decisions and our free will choices. And that's what he goes on to conclude this chapter. He says like this: we have real options. The openness of the universe is at the heart of creation. Meaning that Hashem opened up this world so that we should be inside of it and have decisions that we can make. That's the whole crux of this creation that He made. Its deepest axiom is the idea that Hashem hides or contracts His oneness in order to allow creation that is at some level independent of Him. So it's like a miraculous thing that God has done. Nothing exists without Hashem. And we call Him the Mekayim Shel Olam. He's the place of the world, which means to an extent the world is like resting inside of Hashem. At the same time, the only way that we could have the ability to have free will is if HaKadosh Baruch Hu contracts Himself and He allows the world to operate like independent of the foreknowledge that it's acting independent of the foreknowledge of Hashem. It's not acting independent of Hashem, because everything is happening because Hashem is willing it and He's pushing it and He's making it and He's running it. But if His foreknowledge would get in the way of this world, then it's true, you'd have no free will, because everything was already determined by Hashem. So the Arizal is saying, in this world, we're not dealing with His Yediyah, His foreknowledge. In this world, He created a vacuum of space that we exist and we can make decisions. So to be sure, how Hashem contracts or limits Himself is a deep mystery. We'll never understand that. How Kodesh Baruch Hu can do such a thing? How does someone that is omniscient, omnipotent, that is all powerful, that it takes up every ounce of space in the world and the universe and so on and so forth, how can He contract Himself? You'll never really understand. So there's always going to be something that's beyond human understanding that forms the basis of our free will. So that's beyond. You understand? You can't understand. What could you understand? I'm a member of this world. What does it mean to be a member of this world? In this world, there are situations that will arise that call upon me to exercise my free will. That's what it means to be part of this world. And therefore he says like this, that the point at issue is not whether Hashem's knowledge is perfect at an absolute level or whether free will exists in the human realm. Because we're saying that's the given. Hashem's foreknowledge is absolute in His world. And we are living down here in this world. In the human realm, we have free will. But rather about where to set the limits that make it possible for us to talk about this mystery. Meaning, if we don't have some kind of understanding of how that works, so then we can never really explain the mystery of Hashem's foreknowledge and our free will. So what are the boundaries over here? So he says like this, if you say that Hashem knows everything in advance, so then that should obliterate all degrees of freedom. And yet, we have room to move. So meaning we see that we have room to move inside this world. We can do things. You can play, you can, if you want to test it out, you can, make a choice one day to do one thing, and then the next day in the same exact situation, or 3 days down the road in the same exact situation, you could choose to do something else. Meaning you understand that there's nothing pushing you to do that. You are using whatever's inside of you, that ruts on that will, that desire that you have. You are using that to make the choice that you want to make. Meaning, as far as we know, there's nothing pulling the strings. There's no puppeteer upstairs that's pulling the strings and saying, do this and do that. It's you, when you're aware of what's going on, the internal battle, the struggle that's inside, you're choosing to do. You're actually choosing to do. And therefore, he says, so he has somehow limited the effects of his knowledge to give us that space. Meaning, while I'm making a decision, in Hashem's realm, He still knows everything. So that means that if His foreknowledge would be in the world right now, then you would have no choice, because He's already dictating what's going to be. So somehow, this is the mystery of free will and God's foreknowledge, somehow He's been able to make some kind of a separation from the foreknowledge that He has so that this world could exist, so that you, on a Monday in Los Angeles, California, can find yourself in a situation that requires a decision to be made, and you're going to make free will, and it has nothing to do in contradiction with the fact that in God's world, everything is already known. So the question is, how much space has Hashem actually given us? To what extent is the free will? Is it better to say that our freedom is not as real as it appears? Or is that not accurate? This is the arena in which the commentator's discussion takes place. Now what Rav Tatz is about to say is that even though that we had, up until this point, like 6 previous opinions, so to speak, of exactly how free will is going to work, and some of them seem to be completely in contradiction of each other, and they get lambasted by some of the other commentators, like, how could you even say such a thing? The Rabbi Tatz is going to use this understanding of the Arizal to explain that every opinion, no one's really arguing with the idea of foreknowledge and free will. The argument is how much of the free will has Hashem given us in this world. And so he explains like this. Remember, the first and perhaps the most fundamental opinion in the world of free will is the Rambam. The Rambam is the one who learns, at the end of the day, you're never going to understand the answer. But trust me, says the Rambam, Hashem knows everything, and you also have free will. And it's not a contradiction, and it doesn't upset your life, and it's not going to change the decision you're going to make. You have free will. That's how it's going to work. So the Rambam then is learning that since that we can't understand that higher dimension of where Hashem is transcending the world, so then we can only apply what we have in this world. And in this world, we all see that we have something called free will, BECHIRA, choice to make. And therefore, the fact that Hashem knows everything, not a contradiction to my actions. Meaning, that you use the words of the Arizal to explain that yes, Hashem, of course He knows everything, because there's an existence of Hashem outside of this physical world. In that existence with only Hashem, He knows everything that's going on. Down here, it's your world. Down here, it's your actions. Down here, it's your decisions. Down here, it's the challenge that you are going through. So the challenge that you are going through in life, the difficulties of making the right choice, that's up to you. So we can know our will and its range of freedom, but we can't know Hashem's essence. So I could see, and I could also see that if I make the right choice, I could see the beneficial impacts it's going to have from making the right choices, maybe on me, on people around me, on family, so on and so forth. If I make the wrong choice, I can see the negative effects that the wrong choice is going to make on me, on my family, on people around me, so on and so forth. I'm able to see all that. So I know my free will. I can even see the effects of my free will. Nevertheless, I can't know Hashem's essence. So how could I understand in my brain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything? But the concept that Hashem knows everything, that is already there. Because He's omniscient and omnipotent, so He has to know everything. How does it end, says the Rambam, it doesn't interfere with my free will. So that's like the general, foundational, fundamental view of free will. And he's using the words of the Arizal to explain this. Now recall that the Rabbi and others, they made it sound like Hashem doesn't really know what's going on in this world. Otherwise, how could you have free will? If Hashem knows everything before it's going to happen, so then how could you have free will? So they explained it in such a way, so then it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu has chosen not to know what's going on in this world so that you can have free will. So the other commentators say, well, how can you say such a thing? Then you're saying Hashem doesn't have total knowledge and doesn't have wisdom of everything. So he uses the Arizal to explain this as well. And that means they're referring to his conduct within the universe after he retracted his unbounded oneness and distanced himself from the world and our consciousness. So he's saying that what does the Rabbi mean when he says that in order for you to have free will, so Hashem has to be like He doesn't know what's going on? That means that since that we're in this world, in the human world, that's our frame of reference, that means that we, of course, have free will in this world, and the only way that it's going to work is because Hashem has constricted Himself and removed Himself in this world so that His oneness and His complete wisdom and knowledge and foreknowledge, that exists up there. So at the end of the day, he says here in the finite world we exist, good and evil exist, and we can choose between them. That's the world that we live in. Everybody sees. There's good, there's bad. There's right, there's wrong. There's blessing, there's curse. There is purity and impurity. Everybody sees that in this world. That's the world that we live in. So you want to choose this, you're choosing that. You want to choose that, you're choosing that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. He also made everything in this world the way that it is. Why did He make the world the way that it is? Because the way that He made the world affords us the opportunity of utilizing our free will. So it's almost like the way that Rabbi Tatz wants to explain, it's almost like everybody's saying the same exact thing. They're kind of just coming from different sides of the coin. Meaning the Rambam is learning that free will is such a powerful force in a person's life, you'll never really understand the contradiction, so don't even bother, just focus in on the fact that you have free will. But of course Hashem knows everything. And the Rabbang and the others are saying, true, the Rambam is true. But keep in mind that the only way that we can have this free will down here is because Hashem has done the mystery of constricting Himself and removing Himself, so to speak, from the world. Which means that at the time that I'm making a free will choice, it's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have that foreknowledge at that moment to know what you're going to choose. Otherwise, how could you choose? So Hashem's realm of foreknowledge is up here. Our free will choice is down here. And therefore we're making the choices. And it's not a contradiction at all to the fact that Hashem knows everything. So it's really almost at the end of the day that according to the Arizal, everybody's saying the same thing. They're just coming from like different sides of the coin and the spectrum to be able to understand. But at the end of the day, everything is, Hashem of course knows everything. If you say that he doesn't, so then you're saying that Hashem is not all-knowing and all-powerful and almighty. So you can't say that. Otherwise, you're limiting Hashem's power. And we can't limit Hashem's power because he's everything. But at the same time, we have choice. How do we have choice if Hashem knows everything? Because in this finite world that Hashem created, for the purposes of giving us free will, because every time that we make a right decision, we're going to be rewarded. Every time we make a negative decision, there's going to be consequences. And that's how we're going to be measured in this world and the world to come. So therefore, he made an environment that facilitates this mitzvah over here and this power of bechira, of free will.
But he still knows the final outcome.
Of course, he knows everything.
He just gave us the choice. But at the end, he knows we'll do X or Y.
Otherwise, he doesn't know. But again, the easiest way to say it is, like we saw in previous opinions, is that the fact that he knows what's going to be the ultimate outcome doesn't change what I'm choosing, because he's able to see already. Right now, he's watching everything. He's watching past, future, present, right now. So right now, today, he knows what I'm going to choose tomorrow, because tomorrow is already in the mind of Hashem. But that's my choice that I'm going to make. Anyway, I find it fascinating the way that he brings it down, because that means then that really we're all the discussions are on just talking about the same thing. It just really depends on the perspective and what you decide to focus on, how you're going to explain the contradiction, which at the end of the day, says the Arizal, it's not a contradiction. The Rambam would say it's not a contradiction. The Rabbi would, it's not a contradiction. It's a mitzvah, it's a reality. This is the way that Hashem has set up the world. Okay, we still have, believe it or not, there's still a few more commentators over here to try to explain in some deeper ways what exactly is going on. Well, we actually still have like a good 13 pages of this chapter to go, and we'll start next time with the Or HaChaim, who's one of the classical commentators on the Chumash. No, so that's the beauty of this. They're all right. They're just coming from different vantage points, which is always the beauty of Torah. Like, we're all sitting in the same room right now. We all admit that we're sitting in Makar Chaim on 5180 Avinasi, and we're sitting in the main shul. But all of us have a different perspective of what this shul looks like, because we're all sitting in different places. So I'm looking out at the entirety of the shul. You're looking towards me, and you just see a small piece of the shul. But we're all seeing the shul, and we all know where we are. So the beauty of the understanding of the breadth of Torah is that all of these sages that have come along throughout history, they're all sitting in different places in that ultimate base midrash, that ultimate study hall of the Torah. Some of them had a broad, a very gigantic vision. So therefore they were able to see different components that other people couldn't see. Some of them, their vision was more limited. They still saw where they are. They still saw the truth of the Torah, but they couldn't always see all of the whole panorama and all the vistas that were there. So the Arizal was a giant of his generation, and probably a soul, they say, that goes back hundreds of years before that. So therefore, when he sees everything, he sees that all of the commentators that are talking about, they're all really talking about the same thing. But if you understand it like this, the way that he's explaining it, then everything begins to fall into place. Thank you. You're welcome.